Welcome to the LiveTap podcast. I'm your host, Damian Trailer, and today I have Coach Matt Williams tapping in with me. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing today so far?
Good. I came from the Commons. My guys were doing a light lift, and before that I was using a leaf blower to get some of those sweet gum balls or whatever, little spiky brown balls, and pine straw off the courts. We got a match tomorrow and practice later on today, so as small as those are, sometimes they're, we can slip on them. So, that's part of the, we all joke about it. It's the other duties as assigned as coaching. So having to make sure the courts were clear so we could get a good practice in.
Who do y'all play tomorrow?
We have a JV match against Indiana Wesleyan, which is an NAIA school. I think they came down to play Reinhardt, and then we're just looking to pick up, like we do when we go, kind of far away. We try to make sure we can, if we can, find another team so we're not going so far just for a one-off.
Okay. Coach, before we start the episode, can you give me where you're from, what you coach, and how long you've been coaching here at Piedmont?
Yeah, so I'm actually I'm from Toccoa, Georgia. So 30 minutes away down the mountain. Grew up there. Most of my life was there until I went to college, and I coach men's tennis here at Piedmont University, and I'm halfway through my fourth season.
Well, yes, sir, Coach. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Coach Williams, can you tell me and the viewers about your journey to how you became head coach of Piedmont men's tennis team? Because from my research, you had a couple pit stops along the way to become head coach of Piedmont.
So I was in grad school at Clemson University in 2012, 2013, did that for a year, didn't want to do that anymore, so I dropped out, but I had already signed a lease for the next school year, and a longtime family friend had reached out to me while I was in grad school and asked if I wanted to help him coach the team at Southern Wesleyan, which is about 5 miles outside of Clemson. And I told him no at the time because I was too busy. I was a teaching assistant, doing my own research, taking classes, and the minute I dropped out, that was kind of like the first phone call was to tell my parents and whatever, and just say, hey, I'm done with this. And then the second one was to call him to see if he was interested in having me be his assistant coach, just because I was going to be there anyways, and I had a tennis background. And so my first season was there spring of 2014. First year program, like I said, so most of the student athletes that I coached that year were students, and the athletes was a little negotiable. But there was no recruiting beforehand. It was just find people from the student population that had somewhat, had at least played tennis before, or maybe other fall sport athletes, just to field a team. And I fell in love with it. We were awful. When you're coaching against teams that were winning NAIA, which is what they were at the time, national champions, and I'm putting out people who I taught how to keep score the week before, it's not going to go well. But I fell in love with the team environment of it because it's just so different from tennis at every other level, which is super individual. And then I knew I still wanted a graduate degree in something, and I applied to Georgia to get a sports management degree. And that fall 2014, I enrolled at Georgia, and I spent 4 years there working with the women's tennis team, which they're still really, really good. Probably one of the best teams in the country, but the 4 years I was there, we actually didn't win anything. We got to a lot of finals, but we were number 2 in the country every year, and I had a bunch of roles there. I started off as the manager, and then as I kind of showed that coaching staff that I was, ambitious, or that's not really the right word, but I wanted to invest in the team, and I wanted to go into coaching myself. They kept giving me more and more responsibilities, so, I was a volunteer coach for a little bit. When I graduated, they let me apply for any coaching job I wanted, and then when a good enough one didn't come around, they basically hired me on as the operations program specialist guy, so I did that for 2 years while applying for more coaching jobs, and then eventually I left to become the assistant coach at the University of Delaware, which was my first big assistant coaching job at a Division I school, and I was so pumped. Moved to Delaware, coached the women's team for a year, and subsequently got fired. So that lasted about 3 days, and then I got hired as an assistant coach at Georgia State
Mm-hmm.
for the men's team. So then I got to move back and coach a team that was actually nationally ranked. So that's why I tell everyone the best thing that ever happened to me is I got fired, because it was just, I probably would have stayed on the women's side. I probably would I'd never have taken the risk of coaching guys. And it kind of forced my hand, and I got to move back home. And I loved my Georgia State job. It just happened to be the 2019-2020 season.
Oh, COVID year.
Yeah, so I loved that job till about May 12th or March 12th, and then there was no more tennis. And I moved home to my parents who still live in Toccoa. It wasn't too far from Atlanta to Toccoa. I say moved home because during the Georgia State job, I actually was sleeping in my office because I didn't make enough to pay rent in Atlanta.
Wow.
So I would sleep in my office Monday to Friday. I'd go home, or we would travel on the weekends, and then when we got back from our trip, I would then go home, do all my laundry, sleep in a real bed, and then come back Monday morning or Tuesday morning to start the new week. So
wow, that's crazy.
it was kind of a grind, but what I loved about that job wasn't how much I was making, which was nothing. I mean, I made, I think, $1,000 a month. So
I ain't doing nothing in Atlanta.
yeah, nothing in Atlanta, especially not that part.
No.
That's downtown.
Downtown.
So it was the guys. It was the guys. Those 9 guys specifically on that team. Like, I still talk to them, even though I was only their coach for like 6 months. Like, I still have a relationship with those guys, and I loved it. So the COVID thing that hurt a lot because I was losing them basically more than the job. I was seeing them every day, and then went to New Jersey, worked at a country club just because like summer 2020 the like Northeast was doing a little bit better than down here in terms of containing COVID. So I went up there, worked at a country club for like 2 months, quit that because I was making more giving private lessons in Princeton, New Jersey. So I was hanging out with the Princeton coaches and giving private lessons like 6-7 hours a day. And then like November, the Ivy League, which was kind of the harbinger of the year before. They were the first conference that canceled the 2020 season.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided in like November that we're just not going to have a 2021 season either. So at that point, there was no reason for me to hang around to see if I could help out with Princeton's teams. I moved back in with my parents at 31, which is not ideal for anybody.
No.
But Trey, kind of, I'd known him from working UGA tennis camps, and he said, why don't you just come and volunteer coach, with the women's team on the weekends, so that way you don't have a gap in your coaching resume, wait for kind of this to settle down, you can apply for other coaching jobs, in the summer, but at least you're doing something college tennis this spring 21. So I did that. I had the opportunity to coach some of the guys' matches as well when the men's head coach at the time wasn't able to, which is funny because back in 2018 I had like 2 job offers, and it was Delaware assistant women's coach, Piedmont head men's tennis coach. So I turned Piedmont down once, and so at the end of that 21 season, Coach Peoples offered me the job again, and I was like, yeah, man. So
wow.
and it was the job hadn't changed, but I saw in the men's team that I got to coach just a little bit that spring. Like I said, I was mostly helping with the women's team, but the guys that spring really wanted to be coached, and they wanted to be pushed, and they wanted kind of, I saw some of what I had with the Georgia State guys in those guys, whereas the first time I interviewed, it was over the summer, like nobody was in town, so I didn't get to know the players. I kind of only saw the facilities in the school, and leaving Georgia and the program that Georgia was going to be hard for me to go from that to Piedmont.
Yeah.
Especially because I was, in my late 20s, still chasing like the Division I head coach dream. But after, a worldwide pandemic, living close to my parents, having a stable job, making an actual impact on these kids' life instead of chasing my own career ambitions was a lot more attractive. So I took it, that summer, and I started August 1st, 2021, and I've been here since.
Man, Coach, that is a crazy story. Man, you had so many pit stops. I'm not going to lie, because I was doing my research on you, and I was like, dang, okay. UGA, Georgia State, Delaware. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm just counting up the stops. I'm like, well, that's a lot. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just let him, explain it to the viewers and stuff. But on to the sports questions. My first question for you, coach, is what made you fall in love with the sport of tennis?
So my dad played basketball at Toccoa Falls. So
Mhm.
my parents met in college at Toccoa Falls. He played basketball. They never left. They just stayed in Toccoa as their middle school, high school teachers. Um, but one of the unfortunate things with team sports is once you graduate, it's really hard to maintain or find enough people to keep playing those team sports.
Yeah.
So he and my mom um, took up tennis together before I was born, and I kind of once I was born, they were at the courts every day, so I was at the courts every day in my little playpen or whatever. Obviously I can't remember, but they tell me, and one of my first words was either juice or deuce. They're not sure. So, if you want to stick with the tennis thing, we'll say that, it was deuce. But I was also named after a tennis player. So, in the argument of fate versus free will, there's really not much on the free will side right now, but, it seems like I was destined to become a tennis coach. But I didn't love playing tennis growing up. I think because it was so individual. And my dad was my only coach, and that's always hard from both sides.
Mm.
So I think it took me kind of quitting playing tennis and then coming back as a college student and realizing how much I missed it. And then the next step of me really falling in love with it was getting to work with that Southern Wesleyan team. Like I said, we weren't very good at tennis. It was all the other stuff that really made me fall in love with coaching. But tennis itself is really beautiful. I think there's like an Andre Agassi quote that says, tennis is very reflective of life because we have points that become games, that become sets, that become matches, just like your day has seconds that become minutes, that become hours, that become days. So, it's also a lot of geometry, and I was kind of a math science guy.
Mm.
So I like solving puzzles. Like whether or not, like how do you match up against the opponent, and how do we outsmart you? So that's always attractive to me. But the tennis is probably secondary of what I like about college tennis. The college and the team and all that stuff is what's kept me in it. I didn't really love working at a country club, and I don't really love giving private lessons. It's college tennis.
So you used to look at it as like a chess game, you would say, with other
100%. If they're trying to do X, how do we neutralize first, and then how do we kind of flip that to our advantage? So, if we can figure out what they're trying to do, then we can stop it. If we're just kind of lost in the sauce, we're just probably out of luck at that point. If we don't even know what they're trying to do to us, that's we're probably going to get beat. So, first step, how are we trying to win? Second step, how are they trying to win? Third step, how do we shift that in our favor 1%?
I mean, Coach, I know you talked about you being, somewhat destined to be a coach as a kid. But what made you want to be a coach, though?
It was the relationships with the college kids. Even when I didn't want to be a coach, I originally wanted to be a college professor. Mm-hmm. And my parents were teachers, so it's really the only profession I've ever seen. It wasn't like bring your kid to work day and I went to a cubicle. Like my parents were teachers, my aunt's a teacher, my grandma was a teacher, my sister-in-law was a teacher. So I think it's a service profession, like teaching, because we don't like teachers, coaches for the most part, unless you're coaching a football team at a top 5 school, you're not making a lot. So it's really, the reward is what you get when you invest in these kids and you see like what they can become. Mm-hmm. And when you see them achieve their goals. That's much more meaningful than really anything I could do. I'll give you an example. For I was at Georgia for 4 years. I said we made a bunch of finals, but we never won. So yeah. I thought I was cursed to just never win a conference championship ring. And last year at home, we beat Covenant College for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, but first time since I've been coaching. Mm. And with that, we pretty much had locked up the regular season conference championship. And I remember just kind of tearing up, not because I finally got my own ring. I didn't care. It was just me being really proud of them for like just being brave that day and not backing away from the challenge. So that was like, we did eventually get like some rings for our regular season championship. I put it on once, and it was not as nearly as satisfying as I thought it was going to be. So, yeah, the moment I can remember, I was on court 5 and Silas was on court 4. Bryce was clenching on court 2, and they all kind of stormed Bryce's court because he was the last one that we needed to win. I was coaching Silas to make sure that if Bryce lost and Connor lost, that Silas wasn't just on an island by himself and last guy standing. So Silas ran over to me and just gave me a big old hug and said congrats, and it was just like, that was more meaningful than putting the ring on my finger. Just watching them celebrate and realizing they had accomplished it. So.
Oh, Coach, that's what's up for real. I mean, congrats to you on that last year. But,
appreciate it.
Coach, over the next 8 days, the tennis team has 10 matches. How do you plan to make sure your players are fresh and energized for each match over the next week or so?
Yeah, I didn't realize that till like 2 days ago. So I knew it was a lot, but I didn't realize it was like 10 and 8.
That's crazy, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it is. So we go to Orlando for spring break. We get the opportunity to play a lot of teams down there that we wouldn't normally see. We're playing a team from Ohio. We're playing a team from Wisconsin. We're playing a team from.
I think I seen Philly. Wasn't I mistaken?
Maybe, yeah. Transylvania's from Kentucky. So like these are trips where it's just not fiscally or responsible for me to take the team to go to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So on spring break, I usually try to play as many teams as I can that I think will be beneficial to us, and it just kind of worked out. We play Huntington on Friday at home before, which is our second conference match, and then the Pfeiffer head coach is one of my good friends, so he's coming down to play us, and then Huntington and Pfeiffer are playing each other, and then we play Huntington after. But the good news is with the way that the matches are scheduled, I don't think anybody on the team should play more than 4 or 5 of those. We can only really play 6 singles matches, or we only play 6 people in singles, 6 people in doubles. I've got a team of 14. So, the biggest key there is just the depth that we have on our roster right now, where I don't feel the pressure to play my best 6 guys in all 10 of those matches.
Yeah.
That's not healthy for their bodies or their minds or anything. So knowing and scheduling appropriately where I can give all 14 guys the opportunity to compete for Piedmont in some meaningful matches is really going to be the key to see if spring break and tomorrow and Friday are successful or not. So tomorrow we're playing Indiana Wesleyan like we mentioned, and I'm playing a team of all 5 of my freshmen will be playing, and one senior who doesn't get to play as often as some of the other guys. But that's important to give rest to the guys that need to play Friday. And it's everybody kind of buying into, I'm not playing today, but I'm important. I'm playing tomorrow. I've got my role today when I'm not playing, and then buying into that and just kind of pacing everybody's schedule out so that. You're playing maybe once a day or once every 2 days. So that 10 and 8 becomes a little bit more manageable when you look at it as you're playing maybe 4 matches in 8 days. That's a lot more tolerable for your body, for your mind, for everything else. So that depth of the team is going to be really important for us.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, when I read that, did my research, I was like, that's a lot of games in a week span.
When we come back from spring break, we will have played as many matches over spring break. Like Friday to next Wednesday, we play 8 matches. So if we take out the 8 varsity matches. Let's put it that way. From Friday to next Wednesday, we play 8 varsity matches. When we get back from spring break, we only have 8 varsity matches the rest of the season. So that kind of tells you like a third of our season, and we're 3 and 3 right now. So we've played a third. We got a third in the next week, and then we have a third over the next month and a half. So it's going to be an interesting kind of dynamic of knowing we're not going to be packed in when we come back. We just kind of got to survive this week.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, surviving the weeks or whatever, you guys do have to play a nice, very big team, you could say, in Case Western Reserve, which is number 4 in the country in D3. How did you schedule this game, and what made you want to schedule this game? And how would you say it can help you towards playing in conference in a couple weeks?
Yeah, so I've got a lot. Like our team's really experienced this year, so and really talented. So we got experience and we got talent, and I'll just kind of go in reverse order. I wanted to schedule as good teams as possible.
Yeah.
So our record at the end of the year might not be great, but if we're going into the conference tournament, having used to played the toughest competition possible, hopefully we'll be better prepared for that. So that's really the number one goal was, I tell my guys weekly, I don't need your best tennis today. We just need to get a little bit better. We guys, we just want to play our best the third or fourth Saturday in April, which is when our conference tournament is. So I had listened to their head coach on a podcast maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he had taken over the Case Western job and basically took a similar mindset of we'll play anybody, anytime, anywhere. We just want the best competition possible. And I really liked that. And I reached out to him via email and said, hey, I liked your podcast. I think it's great that you take that mentality. And I had seen that they also go to Orlando for spring break. And so I asked, would you be willing to play us? And they're really, obviously, like you said, they're 4 in the country. So they have a really deep team. So I even said something like, if you want to schedule somebody at the same time and let us play your bench, I'd be really grateful. And last spring break, they ended up going to California instead. So he was like, basically agreed, but we're not coming. And then maybe late last fall, I was just scrolling on the list of teams that were coming to spring break in Orlando this year. And I saw that they were back. So I went back in my inbox and just kind of dug out the email I'd sent him like a year and a half ago and replied to it. And I said, hey, I saw you're coming back this spring break. Are you still interested? Like, could we get that match that you said that you would, And he's, within a couple hours just, immediately said yes. So it's fun to see those teams. Last year we played number 1 Emory at home. So it's fun for those guys it's fun for my guys to get to play that level. And one of our goals this season was to be ranked nationally. We've never been ranked nationally. So it's fun to play against that level, which are also Division III teams. Like earlier this season we played Samford University, which is Division I school in Birmingham. Last week we played North Greenville, which is a Division II school in Greenville, South Carolina. And when we play those teams, it's fun because they're really talented, but they're also on scholarship. They're supposed to be better than us. But when we play a team like Emory or Case Western, it's kind of like the revealing of the upper levels of our sport. Because Division III is obviously all academic, academics first, but we also love to play our sport. We're not on scholarship. We do this for fun because we love it, So when we played Emory, hopefully when we play Case Western, it'll be seeing how a team, which on paper is very similar to us because we're Division III student athletes, treats it, if they treat it more professionally, just to see how they act, knowing that they are at the top of our sport, and what can we take away from that's applicable. Because sometimes playing Samford and North Greenville was great, but we can't do some of the stuff that they do because they're on scholarship. So that's kind of why, and just the more teams we play that are good, the better we'll get. And if we take the loss, we take the loss. But again, I'm not chasing win-loss record. I want us to have that ultimate success that comes with winning the conference tournament and making the NCAA tournament. And maybe we get to play Emory first round in the tournament. That'd be awesome. So.
You ducking nothing over here, y'all. Oh man, Coach. On to the next question though. Coach, you're in your 4th season so far. You're 50-19. Congrats on that. That's a great percentage of record. What has been a formula that has led you to having such success early in your head coaching career at Piedmont?
Yeah, so the first thing we did, and I still talk about it with the team now. It's not like it ended and we just kind of moved on from it, Brett. But it was just taking everything just a little more seriously. When I got in, there were some clicks on the team. Basically the old head coach You had the 6 guys that played, and you had however many left on the team that didn't start, and the 6 guys that were starting got good practice, and everyone else just got to go do whatever they wanted because there was no oversight. So, one of the first things I did was I bought, our uniforms kind of took on maybe we spent a little bit more and got higher quality uniforms because what's the first step to taking yourself more seriously was look the part. So we got nicer uniforms, and the good news with us being a Nike school and a bunch of Division I schools being Nike is I would just kind of stalk their social media, and if I saw like a cool shirt, I'd try to go find it in Piedmont colors, and then get our logo on it. So that was kind of step one. Was just hey, it's okay to take this seriously, even though we aren't on scholarship. We can take it seriously, and that's okay. We can go to the weight room. We can, try and fail. That's okay. We don't have to, confine ourselves to this little box. But the most important thing that we still do that to kind of turn things around there was just off-court team bonding events, and just the buying into the fact that at the end of the season, you're going to be playing somebody either in the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament where the tennis level is going to be about equal.
Yeah.
And usually in that case, the team that's closest wins because they're playing for something bigger than themselves. They're not just trying to win because they want to win. They're playing for their teammates, their brothers, etc. So that first year, we took a bunch of after almost every match, I would take them to like Your Pie. Or Cercheros hadn't opened yet. But so we'd go to Your Pie in Clarksville, just have a team dinner, just to get them to not immediately just go back to their rooms.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the first step. And then since then, it's gotten more and more organic where like they've started playing. Like this year, we haven't gone out after a home match. They just go to they go to the calf on their own, and they eat with each other. And they've been playing a lot of pickup basketball, and they've been playing like in the fall, they play a lot of pickup soccer. So it's just, it wasn't easy. Like I really had to like force them to hang out when I first got here. But now it's kind of, I don't have to worry about that. I know they're doing it themselves. So really that's, that helps with recruiting because if everyone comes and visits, they see how close the team is and they want to be a part of that. So just having a team that cares about each other, win or loss, on and off the court. I hear all the time stories that I don't, they're like, hey, so-and-so is, Charles just took Rohan and Brent to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. And they're always doing stuff for each other that I don't have to direct anymore because they actually do care about each other. And really that's the reason why we've won a lot of close matches. It's just how much they really do care about each other.
The team morale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what's up. I mean, I came to a couple matches, and even on the women's side, like the tennis teams, like I've always seen y'all like support each other, whether the men's are playing and the women are not. They're there to support,
right,
or vice versa.
And
it's just really cool.
It doesn't hurt that Trey and I have known each other since before I worked here. Obviously, he's been here a lot longer. We also live together. So, yeah. So I see him almost 24/7, between work and at home and whatever. So I think part of it is probably we work together for the most part. He probably gets mad at me, but I get mad at him too. So, but for the most part, we work really well together. I would say 340 days, maybe 41 days. I think there's probably 2 weeks over the course of the year where I just am livid at him. So I could assume there's probably 2 weeks worth that he's mad at me too. But I think since we work so well together, it kind of overflows into our team supporting each other as well. And there's they're friends with each other too. So there's not really a rivalry. If there was, we're on the losing end of that because Trey's coming off a three-peat and going for number 4. So we're trying to win our first tournament title. So it's a little different. We're in different situations with that, so there's really not a rivalry. We're not competing for resources. It's just mostly mutual support.
No, for real. Although the team had a good season last year, y'all lost in the CCS Finals. What motivation did that give yourself and the team coming into this season?
A lot. We were the regular season champions. We were the 1 seed going into the tournament, and we got to the finals and probably played our worst match of the year. Maybe not in terms of tennis, but in terms of we let the moment get to us a little bit. And we had maybe had a couple weeks to kind of read our own press before the tournament. So, thinking that, no one in the conference could compete with us, just kind of, because we had beaten Covenant for the first time, like I said, and we had beaten Asbury. They weren't in our conference last year, but they are now. And then Asbury had beaten Covenant pretty bad.
Yeah.
So, that's after the season ended, while we're kind of waiting on the conference tournament, I think, the team and myself for sure a little guilty of, okay, well, we beat Asbury and Covenant. Asbury beat Covenant, then, no one can compete with us. It was just too long for us to kind of buy into our own hype. And we laid an egg in the final. I mean, we came out and they dominated us in doubles with their energy, which is normally our calling card. You said you've been to some matches. We can yell and have fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That day they kind of did to us what we'd been doing to people the whole season, and it carried over. For example, last year the rules, we played 3 doubles matches, and last year each one of those counted as a team point. So there were 2 matches the entire year where we lost all 3 doubles. One of them was Emory, who was the number 1 team in the country, and the other one was the conference finals. When we played top 20 teams, top 30 teams, top 40 teams, we always were able to steal one of the doubles to keep it close, 2-1, 1-2. But those were the 2 matches where we lost all 3, so basically we were in a big hole going into singles where we had to win 5 out of 6.
Wow,
and
that's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. And, to be fair, we competed really well on most of the courts, but knowing that they only had to win 2 out of 6, you could have a losing record. You could lose 2/3 and they win the championship. So it was just a little too big of a hole for us to crawl out of there in the finals. And it kind of has led into the way that season ended is why I scheduled so many hard teams this year. After our conference regular season ends this year, we're playing UC Santa Cruz in a neutral site match. They were top 40 last year, and we're playing Center at Center, and they were top 40. So, we're going, hopefully, instead of having 2 weeks to read our own press, we're playing 2 of the hardest teams on our schedule in between the conference season ending and the tournament starting. So hopefully that will, if there is any ego that crept in, those 2 matches will either hopefully bring us back down to earth and prepare us at the same time. So
that's for sure. That's what's up, Coach. So far this season, like you said, the team is 3-3 with a winning record in conference. With it being early in the season, you could say, how do you plan on keeping the team focused going into the 10-game and 8-day stretch?
Yeah, it just kind of goes back to keeping our main goal of just peaking in late April. When we lost a couple weeks ago, we had a trip to Memphis. We played 2 really good teams from the SAA, Hendricks and Rhodes. We'd already played Barry, who's also in the SAA. And then on spring break, we'll play Millsaps, and then we'll play at Oglethorpe, at Swanee, at Center. So Coach Neely joked with me that he wanted to know where we were listed in the preseason SAA rankings because we played the entire conference. So I scheduled the entire conference because I know how tough that conference is. But it just kind of goes back to after we went 0-2 the weekend in Memphis, we were kind of at an all-time low just in terms of, we thought we were going to come in there, maybe get 1 of the 2, maybe 2 of the 2, and we just we got outplayed because they were probably more talented than us on one of the matches, and the other one it felt like we were not ourselves. Very similar to the conference finals where we just weren't playing our best, but we also didn't have our best attitudes. We didn't have our best teamwork, all that kind of stuff. So normally, we played Saturday, we played Sunday, and then Sunday, I drove the van back from Memphis, so 6.5 hours. Normally, we would all take Monday off because we just played over the weekend. I'm tired because that's a long drive for me. We got back at 12:31 a.m. So normally we would take Monday off, and I just felt like we needed to get back on the court and just kind of exercise those demons as fast as possible. We didn't need to sit in it on Monday, just kind of stewing. And so we went back out there and practiced on Monday, and it was honestly one of the best practices of the whole year, fall included. And since then, we've really kind of turned the page in terms of how practices have gone. The attitudes have been great. We kind of know where we are. We just kind of it was a good gut check early in the season, and I'd much prefer that to be on February 22nd than April 27th. So, I think the goal. We got two tough matches at home on Friday. We'd love to at least get one of those and go into spring break 4-4.
Yeah.
And then it's just it doesn't make sense to. It doesn't make sense to actually act like we're gonna compare with a top 5 team in the country. We're not there yet. We've never been ranked in the top 50. So when we play Case Western, we're gonna compete, but it's a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do between points? How do they carry themselves in the warm-up? How can playing them make us better? I'm not expecting to win that match.
Mm-hmm.
But there is another match a few days later against number 30 Carthage where we can apply what we learned and maybe push them, and if we can sneak that one out, then okay, now we maybe have a ranked win or whatever. So it's just about keeping the perspective. It's wins and losses are just numbers next to a dash. It's really about just growing as people, as competitors, as everything else, and keeping the main thing in focus. And for us, that main thing is it's not even winning the conference tournament. I know the guys will tell you probably that that's the goal, is to win the conference tournament and play in the NCAA tournament, which of course is a goal. Yeah. But my kind of number one goal is us to play our best in the conference tournament. And if we still lose it, I'm okay with that, because that means they're just better than us. I don't want to go into the conference tournament and us beat ourselves or not be prepared, because if they're not prepared, that's on me.
Yeah.
So if we go and we play our best and we fight for each other and we lose, it's okay. I'm not going to lose sleep over a loss. Like, the stereotypical coach, from TV where they stay up all night because they lost. Like, I don't care about winning or losing. I just want us to get better all the time. Like, I'm obsessed with getting better, and that's it. I don't really care how many losses we take along the way, because if we do win the conference tournament, it's an automatic bid, which means our record doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So let's play let's play the toughest schedule possible, and become the closest team, and usually that takes care of a lot of the winning for us. We don't have to focus on that.
Coach, this is my last question for the sports side. What about coaching at Piedmont do you enjoy the most?
The people, the coaches that I work with. I like coming in every day and getting to talk with, Coach Scally or Coach Neely, Coach Purdy, Coach Stevens and Coach McCormick, and picking their brains, because they've been here a lot longer than I have. And I say those specifically because their offices are the closest to mine, so I see them the most. And they've been at Piedmont a lot longer than I am. Obviously, I told you I see Trey all the time, so he's always helping me out as a Piedmont tennis alum. And then assistant coach and now head coach. He knows Piedmont really well, so he helps me kind of figure out how to be the best version of myself. Having coached at these other schools that we talked about, how to translate that into Piedmont, material, if that makes sense. I can't coach my guys like I can coach the Georgia State guys, because those guys were all on scholarship. So he helps me kind of realize what we can do, but what we can do with what we have, and still push the ceiling and constantly get better. I also personally, I like that my parents live 30 minutes away, so they still coach high school tennis, so excuse me.
Good.
I'll get to go to some of their high school matches, and they'll come and watch our matches. I like the fact that the boys on the team will go up and say hi to my parents, because they know who they are, because they come to so many matches. So, and the parents of the guys on the team come to a lot of home and away matches. We were in Memphis, like I said, a couple weekends ago, and there are 2 or 3 families from my team that were there supporting. Because I've got a team with some guys from outside the state of Georgia, so they were actually playing in Memphis was actually closer for their parents to come watch there than it was to come watch a home match.
Oh,
so
wow, for real?
yeah, Connor is from Kansas and Amir's from Texas.
Okay.
So that was a lot closer for their families. And then Charles's dad works for Delta, so he flew in that morning, watched our matches, and then. So yeah, it was cool. I mean, because we were a long way from home, but to have like a little contingent of families there, and Leighton, one of my freshmen, his mom was there as well. Try not to leave everybody out. If I did forget someone, I know you're all listening. Please forgive me. You can yell at me at the next home match. But it's cool because like I know next week in Orlando, like you said, we got the 10 matches in 8 days. 8 of those or 7 of those are down in Orlando, and I know we'll have parents at most of them. You know, whether it's all of them or not, I'll see somebody's family at every match that we have, and that's cool because, you know, it shows that they still believe kind of the vision that I sold them when I was recruiting their kids, and they haven't, you know, given up yet. So we must be doing something right because everyone's pretty invested, from the parents to the alumni are getting back involved, and the staff as well. So.
On to the mental side now, Coach. First question: do you feel like mental health is important in the sports world?
For sure. And tennis is tough, man. I tell you, college tennis is the only. They're experimenting. They've added a little bit on the pro side, but before that, college tennis was the only level where there was any coaching involved. So high school tennis, you can kind of, you know, through the fence.
Yeah.
You know, maybe once or twice on a changeover. But you know, junior tennis, when you're a kid growing up playing tournaments for the, you know, the pros, most levels up until recently, you're kind of on an island with just you and your opponent. So it's much more akin to a boxing match than, you know, a team sport. So, you know, I tell my guys all the time they need to be a little nicer to themselves, but I know it's hypocritical of me because when I was playing, I said some of the most vile stuff to myself after I would miss a shot because, you know, that it's just you and your thoughts, you know, out there. So, like the stuff I said to myself on a tennis court after missing shots, I would never say to another human being on the planet because it was just, you know, you're just constantly berating yourself. You know, you're so stupid, you're so dumb, how are you so bad, all that kind of stuff. Like I would never tell one of my guys like, hey, you're so stupid, you're so bad. Like you wouldn't talk to another person that way at all. So it's kind of breaking that cycle with the guys on the team and being like, since you wouldn't talk to another person like that, you can't talk to yourself like that. So the minute you can kind of master that part, you can really take your game to another level because now you're not playing 1-on-2. You're not fighting yourself and your opponent.
Yeah. Coach, what tactics as a coach do you do to keep your players fresh mentally?
Most of the changeovers, like, you know, we change sides during the match.
Yeah.
So that's usually when a lot of the coaching occurs. I'll kind of just ask them, you know, what do you need? Or if they're playing really well and they don't really need anything from me and they're kind of on cruise control, you don't really want to, you know, rock the boat.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll just ask them, like, hey, what are you thinking for dinner tonight? You know, like, we had Chipotle last night, but it's Chipotle. Like, you know, just something to keep them, like, loose.
Yeah.
Because they don't really need tactics, you know, and everybody is different. So, for example, Yannick has played a lot of matches at number 1 for me over the last couple of years. When he's losing, for the most part, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that, or if he's in a close match. Mostly he wants to know how the rest of the guys are doing, so he can kind of, you know, and that helps him lock in, because he's like, oh, like, you know, and I've told him before, we can win this, but we need you.
Yeah.
And he'll just, you know, kind of just lock into a new level and just kind of up his focus level because he wants to win for the team. And on the, you know, I've also seen the reverse where we're winning against another team pretty easily, you know, across some of the other courts.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we don't need a certain player to win that day. Their focus might, you know, they might not be as motivated to win if they're struggling because they know the team will win without them.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of just, again, the personal relationships that drew me to coaching. That's kind of what maintains and gets the kids through the matches is knowing like you need something different from Charles, from Rohan, and just knowing how to give them what they need individually. And it's not like I'm some super coach. I just ask them, hey, like, what do you need on a changeover from me to help you? Because I do have good relationships with them, but it's also important for me to admit that I don't know everything, because once you do that, then you get more trust with them. They understand that you're a person just like they are. They're not some kind of mythical, they don't put you on a pedestal anymore. It's a cooperative. I'm coaching, you're playing, but we're working through this together. So how can I help you get to your best level, and how can you help me become a better coach?
I mean, speaking of being a better coach and you helping, your athletes or stuff like that, what makes having confidence an important factor, as a coach, seeing, your athletes having confidence? What makes that important?
Oh, I mean, that's the most important thing. It's just knowing if your confidence, I think, is in how you're playing that day. It goes back to kind of like the parable of building your house on the sand. Because if your confidence is just how you're playing that day, it's not going to last very long. Because the minute a gust of wind happens or your opponent hits a great shot, all of a sudden your confidence is rattled. So we always talk about having like confidence in how we're preparing. So if we've done the work ahead of time, then the match, it should be fun, but it also should be, we have confidence in our, how well our practices prepared us for that match that day. So that's much more of a tangible, solid foundation, because you can point back to, or you can look back to all the practices before today, knowing I've put in the time in the weight room, I've put in the time in the practice court, I've put in the time growing up. Like, I have all of this time invested and experience under my belt. That's where your confidence can come from. It's a deeper well than just how you're hitting a tennis ball that day. And as a coach, this is just a little aside, my least favorite thing that players will tell you is I can't feel my forehand. Very vague, right? It just means like their shot's not feeling as good as it normally does.
Oh, okay.
So, and you probably know it from pickup basketball. Your shot's just off.
It's flat. We say it's flat.
Yeah. So the guys will say, I can't feel my forehand. And I'll just be like, okay, we'll put it in the box anyways. Like, you don't need to play your best every day to win. You just got to have the confidence that you're prepared enough to win. And I think that is really what we do well, is we have tough practices and now a tough schedule, so that hopefully by the end of the year, when we're in a situation where our confidence could be rattled, it's solid enough that it won't be.
Yeah. Coach, it's the last question on the mental side. Can you give... Actually, hold on, wait. I'm sorry. Do you think the sport of tennis has helped shape or grow you as a person?
Yes.
In what way?
No.
You had to think about it.
It kind of goes back to just me also treating myself with maybe a little grace. Like we talked about, I said some of the worst stuff to myself as a player, but as a coach, if you make a decision and it backfires, you lose a lot of sleep over it. I've lost more hours of sleep than I can count, second guessing or scheming ways to get a little advantage, but always second guessing like lineup decisions. Like I said, we play 6, but I have 14, and all 14 are good. So I've got a lot of options that, it's not like basketball or soccer or football where I can't sub them in. So once I make my 6, the decision of which 6 play, that's it. Over half my team's just not playing. Yeah. So those decisions are probably the things that give me the most anxiety, because it's, what's my best lineup, or what's my best lineup for today, or versus who deserves to play based on the last week of practice or everything else off the court, and figuring out what to do with that, because you're going to let down, like I said, if 6 guys are playing and 8 aren't, over half my team's not playing at any given moment. So, how do you decide who needs to play that day for you to win, or who deserves to play, or how important of a match is it for us to play all 6 of my starters? Is it an opportunity for me to play one of the freshmen in a low stakes environment or a high stakes environment to give them some experience that maybe we don't need them right now, but one guy goes down and he's the next guy up. He needs to be ready, not having not played the whole season. So that's caused me to kind of maybe forgive myself a little bit better, maybe forgive myself a little more or a little quicker. Whereas before I became a head coach, even as an assistant, I was a very hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get so mad at myself when I did something, didn't meet my own standards, So I think, being able to reframe my own failures as, learning moments, teaching moments, growing moments. I do a lot better of that with my own team. Hey, this isn't, this is just a step on our path. I wasn't very good at it with myself. I was always really hard on myself. So I think that tennis and coaching tennis as a head coach has really taught me how to just treat myself maybe on the mental side a little better than I was treating myself beforehand.
Mm-hmm. That's real. On to the burner side questions now. I talked to, some of your players, on the team or whatever, and they told me you're somewhat of a philosopher, So, is there like any quote or anything you live by, that you want to share to the viewers and myself as well?
I just read a lot. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably why. I'm always looking to, that's kind of where I look to get an edge, is me knowing I don't know everything. So I'll read a lot of books by other coaches in any sport. Yeah, I've read, let's see, The Inner Game of Tennis is an old book that every sport now has their own version, but that was like the first one. And, I've read Pete Carroll's book. I've read a lot of John Wooden books. I love John Wooden, the old UCLA basketball coach. Yeah, that's facts. I've read books by Sir Alex Ferguson, which was Manchester United's legendary coach. Recently, I'd read, my dad's from Kentucky, so we're Kentucky Wildcat basketball fans. That's the first team I ever remember cheering for. 1996, Rick Pitino takes them to the championship. 1998, they win it again, and so we hate Duke. That's just part of the thing, right?
You don't like Duke?
Kentucky fans can't look up Christian Laettner. Kentucky fans can't like Duke. He made a buzzer beater in '92 to knock Kentucky out of the Final Four. Full court pass, catches it top of the key, drains it, buzzer beater. Kentucky's out of the tournament. So Kentucky hates Duke. It's just part of the thing. But I know Coach K is a legendary coach. So, but it was my personal bias of him just being Duke's head coach prevented me from realizing how good of a coach he was, kind of. Yeah. So we got really into the team and scene. A couple of guys in the team and scene. I started watching The Bear on FX. It's about a restaurant, and one of the characters on the show reads Coach K's book, which is called Leading with the Heart. And those two things kind of combined, and with him no longer being Duke's head coach, he's retired. I finally just bought a copy and read it, and it was really good. Now, if you ask my guys, they'll tell you 100% my favorite book is The Boys in the Boat. And a movie came out a couple years ago, maybe last year. It's a good plot summary, but it's not why I love the book. There's some just some quotes and some random asides. But I think if you all this stuff is to get marginally better as a coach, to hopefully make them marginally better as players and team. But if you asked them, any of the guys on my team, what I live by, they would tell you nothing. The team comes first. Nothing's bigger than the team. No one's bigger than the team. The team comes first, and everything else kind of stems from that. How we dress in practice. We match every day in practice. And that's not uncommon for team sports. But individually, tennis players even when I started here, we didn't do that. My first year, it was just wear something Piedmont to practice. I don't want to see other schools, but wear any Piedmont shirt you had. So, we'd have the whole kaleidoscope or rainbow, whatever, gray shorts, black shirt, black shorts, gray shirt, a green shirt, green, whatever. And last year, which was my third year, we experimented a little bit. We had a couple different pairs of shorts and a couple different shirts. And we had an outfit for Tuesday, an outfit for Wednesday, an outfit for Thursday. But the three outfits were different from each other. Mm-hmm. So some people would get, you guys in college got a lot on your plate, so they get it reversed. They come to Tuesday practice with the right shirt or right shorts with the wrong shirt. So this year I kind of just, okay, I'm gonna take that out of the equation. Here's 5, not the greatest quality, but here's 5 practice shirts. Here's 5 practice shorts. They're all the same. Mm-hmm. You just grab and go. You wear this every day you come to practice, and as individual as a sport as tennis can be, that's a visual reminder that you are on a team every single day. Yeah. And, a lot of those guys that they've never been on a tennis team, in high school where you matched in practice every single day. So, they'll tell you that's kind of, and the Boys in the Boat is about a rowing team from the U.S. that wins the gold medal in the 1936 Olympics. And it's very similar because, in rowing, there's 9 of those guys in a boat. If one of them is out of sync at all, mm-hmm. the boat stops going as fast as possible. Yeah. It's very similar to how, a tennis team, if we're not all on the same page, we're not going to reach the heights that we want to. So I appreciate their comments. I'll have to ask them what they think my philosophy is to coach by, but that's what I'm going to say it is.
Favorite music artist currently or all time?
All time, Coheed and Cambria. Best album came out 2005. It's a mouthful. I'm only going to shout it out because it's so fun to say. And they have a new album coming out next Friday? Friday of spring break? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's Good Apollo. I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. And that is a trip of an album. I still have the CD. It's 20 years old in my car. It skips in places. But one of their most famous songs, Welcome Home, is actually what the men's basketball team lineup they walked out to this year. Yeah. So, they've been my favorite band. They probably weren't my favorite band around 2004, 2005. But since college, they've been my favorite band, and I've seen them in concert 4 or 5 times. I saw them in Boston at the BU Hockey Arena, and then I saw them in the Tabernacle 2 years ago. I got to meet them, and we were front row. So it's I love them. They're an acquired taste. Imagine if you put Star Wars in music form, because the whole thing is like this sci-fi space opera.
Wow.
But the music itself could be, one song might be like electronic, one song might be acoustic, one song might be rock, one song might be just pure pop.
Different genres too?
Yeah, they cover a bunch of different genres, and they just, I think there's probably 10 CDs in my car, and probably 5 of them are from Coheed and Cambria, and then a couple of them are Taylor Swift, so I got a range,
I mean, I just really have a range. I'm a big Drake guy myself. But.
See, I heard that, so I lied. I did listen to your episode with Silas.
Yeah.
Both of you guys, Drake fans.
Very big Drake fans.
It's been a rough year for you. That's all I'm going to say. We don't have to say anything else. It's just been a rough year for you. And that's it. Next question.
Coach. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where are you traveling to?
I was lucky enough, I've seen a few other countries. I spent 3 weeks in Mozambique, which is a third world country just north of South Africa. So if you look at Africa, okay, this way, this is Africa. Yeah. South Africa's here. Mm-hmm. Madagascar, with the penguins over here. Mozambique is right across the whatever street that is from Madagascar. So I spent 3 weeks in Mozambique when I was in college doing chemistry research. Mm-hmm. And that was very eye-opening because, that's your stereotypical, we were in thatched hut villages. Yeah. So kind of what you think of when you think of an underdeveloped part of the world. So I got to see that part of the world. I spent probably 36 to 72 hours in Madrid, Spain recruiting when I was at Delaware, which was really cool. I've been in Puerto Rico. I've spent a lot of time in California. If I could go anywhere, it'd probably be to England. I know it rains a lot, but I love the Premier League. I'd love to go to Wimbledon.
Coach, I appreciate you for coming on the pod, but my last question for you is, if you could look back and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
I have like a really sarcastic answer, but I don't want to do it. I think just don't be afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And really, my mom asked me a couple years ago, probably before I got hired here,
mm-hmm.
but after I had been fired from Delaware, after I had worked at Georgia State, and that job obviously didn't last very long once COVID hit. She asked me if I would change anything, and I didn't. I don't think my answers changed, but I told her no, because even though it hasn't been the smoothest of paths,
yeah,
and I did not or have not yet achieved my ultimate goal of being a Division I head coach, which I don't even know if that's my ultimate goal anymore. But everything that's kind of happened to lead me to where I am today, including sleeping on the floor. And when I mean sleeping on the floor, I mean it was yoga mat, comforter, so there was at least a little padding, pillow, and then just a light throw blanket. And Georgia State, I think.
Yeah.
My office was at one point a box in Turner Field, because it was all of our offices were in Georgia State Stadium,
mm-hmm.
so which was Turner Field that the Braves played in for a while. So the floor was not very soft. It was pretty hard concrete. But all that kind of just made me really appreciate now that I have the opportunity to be a head coach, now that I have the opportunity to influence these guys on a day-to-day basis, on and off the court,
mm-hmm.
making sure they're taking care of their grades and personal life and that kind of stuff. And my answer, I think, still is the same. I don't think I would change anything. I think getting fired from Delaware really has allowed me to coach with kind of a freedom of, that fear of, what if I get fired? What if I lose my job? Like, that fear is gone because it's already happened, and it happened within 9 months of me getting the job I waited years for.
Yeah.
I spent 2 or 3 years at Georgia waiting and applying to 40, 50 plus jobs, and I finally get one, and I don't even last a year. And I don't leave on my own decision,
Yeah.
So once that fear is gone, you can kind of, you're free to be your authentic self, and you're not worried about trying to please, what everyone else might think you're supposed to act or how they say or whatever, because that's what's, I did that and it didn't work out. So now I can just be myself and see how it works. And, luckily we've had some success so far, and hopefully we'll have some more.
Well, Coach, this last thing before we end, I did sail this past year as a navigator. What I used to do with the voyagers before we left the cabins and stuff and did activities. I used to always tell them, like, let's be great today, kind of give them some type of, like, motivation and just some type of positivity. So before we end the pod, if I can get let's be great today from you, I'll give you a count. I'll even say it with you.
Okay.
Look in the camera,
All right.
Just be like, let's be great today.
All right.
All right, good. 3, 2, 1. Let's be great today. Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Coach.
Yes, sir.
It was an honor to interview you today, man. All right, LiveTap family, that is the end of Coach Matt Williams' episode, but y'all stay tuned Thursday because I have Piedmont Men's basketball players Israel Hall and Arturo Overton coming on the pod. Like I always say, man, let's be great today. Y'all stay safe out there.